Hey there, fact friends. Welcome back to another Whisper Facts episode, this time covering the topic of auroras. Now, I have to admit, this is a topic that I am fairly unfamiliar with, so I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about auroras, and I hope you guys are as well. So without further ado, it is time to lay back, relax, and let yourself drift away as I whisper facts about auroras. Auroras, also known as the Northern Lights, Southern Lights, the Polar Lights, Aurora Borealis, Aurora Australis, and Aurora Polaris, is a natural light display in Earth's sky, predominantly seen in high latitude regions around the Arctic and the Antarctic. Auroras display dynamic patterns of brilliant lights that appear as curtains, rays, spirals, or dynamic flickers covering the entire sky. Auroras are the result of disturbances in the magnetosphere caused by solar wind from the sun. These disturbances alter the trajectories of charged particles in the magnetospheric plasma. These particles, mainly electrons and protons, precipitate into the upper atmosphere. The resulting ionization and excitation of atmospheric constituents emit light of varying color and complexity. The form of the aurora, occurring within bands around both polar regions, is also dependent on the amount of acceleration imparted to the precipitating particles. And I think it probably seems like a very obvious thing to say, but auroras are absolutely stunning to look at. I think you will agree. People travel far and wide to get a sighting of one in real life, and I'm not so sure I ever will, but there are a lot of videos out there on auroras capturing them from all over the world, and they make for really fascinating viewing. The word aurora is derived from the name of the Roman goddess of the dawn, Aurora, who travelled from east to west, announcing the coming of the sun. Ancient Greek poets used the name metaphorically to refer to dawn, often mentioning its play of colours across the otherwise dark sky. I've always thought the name Aurora signatures of electrical currents flowing up and down the magnetic field lines, which are almost vertical at high latitudes, hence the near vertical rays of light. Archaeologists believe that some impressionistic cave drawings depict auroras in the sky. The earliest known auroral sighting was written in 2600 BC in China. Yeah, I don't see any scientific reason why they wouldn't have existed as far back as then, so it seems highly likely that what these drawings did depict are in fact auroras. For thousands of years, people have marveled at the spectacular displays that occasionally light up the night sky. Once thought to be portents of doom, there have been hundreds of stories and theories to explain what we now know as auroras. But no one, until about a century ago, suspected a connection with the sun. Norwegian scientist Christian Birkeland, who lived from 1867 until 1917, was the first to explain the source of the aurora, and by his discovery a new field of science was created: the Sun-Earth connection. So, it was only as far back as a century or so ago that the connection was made between auroras and the sun. That's quite surprising, to be honest. I would have thought it was probably a little bit earlier than that, but it's good that the connection was made and it led to a newly created field in science. Auroras look like moving ribbons of light. This is because the particles of plasma are moving due to the Earth's magnetic field. Most auroras occur in a band known as the auroral zone, which is typically 3 to 6 degrees wide in latitude and between 10 and 20 degrees from the geomagnetic poles, most clearly seen at night against a dark sky. You often see in footage of auroras that it's very clear, crisp and dry nights. I'm not sure how visible they'd be in wet and cloudy conditions, but I think every photo or video that I've ever seen have been taken on very clear nights. The term for the northern lights, Aurora Borealis, was coined in 1619 and is, as we have heard, derived from the Roman goddess of dawn, Aurora, and the Greek name for the north wind, is some debate, however, as to who was the first to name them. French astronomer Pierre Gassendi or Italian astronomer Galileo. As someone who isn't particularly interested in science or all that knowledgeable in the area, I have actually heard of the name Galileo, so clearly he was someone of great importance within the field. I don't think I've ever heard of the French astronomer Pierre Gassendi, however. Captain James Cook named the same phenomenon in the southern hemisphere Aurora Australis, following his voyage of discovery to the Antarctic in Resolution from 1772 until 1775. Australis is derived from the Latin word meaning southern. Okay, so that is where the name Australia is derived from, I imagine. The Latin word meaning southern. Australia is somewhere I've always wanted to go, ever since watching the soap opera Neighbours as a child, which you may or may not have heard of. The good old days on BBC One, and that was before it moved to Channel 5, and if you're from the UK, you will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was a great show, but I don't actually watch it anymore. The best place to see the Aurora Borealis is in Alaska, USA, in the winter, when it is in darkness 24 hours a day. In Europe, you can also get a good sighting in Tromsø, Norway, and the city of Murmansk on the Kola Peninsula of Russia. Yellowknife in the Northern Territory of Canada is also a popular spot to see auroras. I've always thought Iceland was a good place to see the Northern Lights, as they're called here, but I could be wrong in thinking that. Yeah, Norway is somewhere I associate with this sort of activity as well. There's a part of it that is contained within the Arctic Circle, I believe, and it makes me think about the ITV survival reality show a number of years ago now, and it was situated somewhere in the very north of Norway, and the show was called 71 Degrees North, and it took a bunch of celebrities and they had to take part in survival style challenges set in the freezing Arctic temperatures as they made their way to the very most northern part of Norway, I believe. Yeah, not one I would fancy taking part in myself. I'm very much a warm weather kind of person. I don't like the cold or the snow. I used to like the snow when I was young, as most kids do, but as I've gotten older, I've really kind of gone off the snow and I don't really like it now. I don't mind if it snows for a few days, but after that it starts to get very tiresome, I think. I prefer to see the world in colour, and snow is just white. Everything is just covered in white, and I would prefer to see colours, if that makes sense. Most of the planets in the solar system, some natural satellites, brown dwarfs, and even comets also host auroras. Auroras are renowned for their spectacular light shows, but less well known are unexplained reports of sounds being heard during auroral displays, with many reports indicating a hissing sound followed by a sharper crackling or clapping. That's a pretty interesting fact, and one that I wasn't aware of whatsoever. I had no idea that they actually give off sound as well. I purely thought that auroras were, I guess you could say, a visual phenomenon. But yeah, no idea that they actually give off sound as well. I'm not sure if they do so in every case or just in some cases. The most spectacular aurora borealis in recent recorded history are considered those from the Great Geomagnetic Storm on the 20th of August and the 2nd of September 1859. Studies have shown that a solar storm of this magnitude occurring today would likely cause widespread problems for modern civilization. Wow, it's just a shame that there would be no recorded footage of it occurring as it was in 1859. It's quite a scary thought though, the last part of that fact. I wonder exactly what kind of problems a storm of this magnitude would cause in today's society. It makes me think about the dinosaurs when they were wiped out by an asteroid, obviously in a more extreme level than that of a solar storm. But if they were wiped out by an asteroid, we know it's likely going to happen again. It's just a case of when. But I highly doubt anything can be done to stop it. Don't believe everything that you see in the movies. In 1989, the Aurora Borealis could be seen as far south as Florida, USA, and the island of Cuba. The color of the polar lights depend on whether electrons collide with oxygen or nitrogen, and how energetically. Oxygen emits greenish, yellow, or red light, while nitrogen generally gives off blue light. The blending of these produces purple, pink, and white. Our night vision is most sensitive to green light, so we are more likely to see the oxygen green line emissions. I love the fact that each aurora is its own sort of work of art, I guess you could say, that two can be, or ever will be, the same. Kind of like when an artist paints something, each painting is unique in nature, much like the auroras. And as I think about auroras and what I have seen of them, I do believe that green is the most common colour that I have seen, so the last part of that fact does make a lot of sense. The solar wind takes 40 hours to reach our planet's atmosphere because the Earth is 92,960,000 miles away from the Sun. That is a pretty stunning fact. Almost 93 million miles between the Earth and the Sun. That is astonishing, really. And that is the first time that I've ever seen the distance between the two written down before. Almost 93 million miles. Wow. Some Inuit peoples believed that the auroras were the spirits of animals that they hunted. Astronauts on duty in the International Space Station that orbits our planet at a height of 370 kilometers above the Earth, meaning they are at that same altitude as auroras and see them from the side. Yeah, the images that I've seen taken from the International Space Station are stunning. Seeing the auroras from a side-on view, giving a whole different dimension to them. They really do get an amazing view up there. And if you've never seen images or videos from the International Space Station of auroras, then I highly recommend that you look them up, because it really does give a different dimension to auroras, and I think they look amazing. Auroras are more likely to occur close to the equinoxes in late March and late September, but displays can occur at any time of year. Winter months are naturally good aurora watching times, simply because the nights are longer. The brightest displays typically last for about 1 to 3 hours, and the best viewing times are generally between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. The South Pole is more inhospitable and inaccessible than the North Pole. Therefore, it is more difficult to view the southern aurora. This is the main reason why the northern lights are more popular and get almost all of the attention. That's true, it is mostly the northern lights that we hear about, and until today I wasn't even aware that there were southern lights, so again, that's new information to me. It's a bit of a shame that they aren't viewed or talked about nearly as much as the northern lights, but as the fact says, they are harder to access, so it makes sense. The plasma forming nobody outside the group that you're with will ever see that particular aurora firsthand. So it's really a special experience, in my opinion. When solar storms erupt on the surface of the sun, the aurora is very strong and extends further away from the Earth's poles. The impressive light display that we see in the sky, seemingly just above our heads, is actually very far away, usually more than 96 kilometers or 60 miles above the Earth. The most distant red lights take place at heights of over 645 kilometers or 400 miles up in the sky. And finally, the solar wind can disrupt our radio, television, and satellite communications. I wonder, is that why my TV has such bad reception at times? Probably not, though. Well guys, that is just about it for this Whisper Facts episode on auroras. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, don't forget to drop a like down below. Consider subscribing to the channel for more facts-based episodes like this one in the very near future. Also, feel free to drop a comment down below of topics you'd like to see covered on the channel. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, rest easy, sleep well,